So welcome to Monday Night Live. Tonight I've got John Albrecht back with me. We're going to talk about Sydney and Charlottetown this evening, and he's going to help us figure out what there is to do when we're there on a cruise. I'm just going to let you go to it there, John.
Perfect. So I'll start with Charlottetown PEI, the smallest city generally on the route going through Atlantic Canada, as well as the smallest province in Canada as well. A beautiful little town. The city itself is known as, or the province, I should say, is known as the Province of Confederation. That's kind of where the first meeting took place for Canada to become a country. But no, what you can do while you're there, you can, downtown Charlottetown's beautiful, nice small town, only 30,000 people, a beautiful main drag on Queen Street with shops, restaurants, fresh seafood. Oysters are the big go if you're in Charlottetown. You also have the Confederation Performing Arts Center right downtown. So of course, PEI is probably most famous for Anne of Green Gables, the book documenting that the young girl's life there, and many people go to do that. So you can watch an Anne of Green Gables show right downtown as well. And you can also see the Province House where that first meeting of Confederacy for Canada took place as well. That is under construction at the moment. So it's all covered in scaffolding and you can't go in. They say it's going to be ready in about a year or two, but construction and government, who knows how long that's actually going to take to get up and going again. But then a big thing for PEI, I highly recommend renting a car and exploring out. It's not a big island. Easy to get around, and a lot of really beautiful places to see. The big one, of course, is actually going to the Anne of Green Gables National Historic Site, looking at the building that was recreated as her home there as well. You can actually go to Lucy Maud Montgomery's house as well. So she was the author of Anne of Green Gables. So her house isn't too far away. Just across on the North Shore, you have PEI National Park and the Cavendish Cliffs as well. So those are those beautiful red sand beaches that many people may have seen in photos and magazines, along with the red sand cliffs that go right along the Gulf of St. Lawrence as well. Excuse me. Another big draw for PEI is actually golfing. So golfing is a huge draw for the little island. There are tens upon possibly hundreds of golf courses in PEI to venture out to and hopefully not do too bad at. And then, of course, all around the island, you have beautiful lighthouses. And another one of the sightseeing things that many people stop by is the Confederation Bridge, which is the nice long bridge that connects Prince Edward Island to mainland Canada as well. Excuse me, sorry about that. But,
Okay.
No, that would be kind of the main things you would do in PEI. A few of the big spots to hit up. Cows would be a good place if you wanted to grab some local ice cream while you're in downtown PEI. And of course, you have to have some sort of potato while you're there. The island, that's its main export, is potatoes in all shapes and forms.
So let me guess, if that's the main export, there's lots of places to eat potatoes in a variety of ways?
Yeah, very much so. And of course, I'm always going to recommend the most Canadian thing ever. Always grab a poutine while you can. Almost all of the restaurants down or up that way have poutines. You can add it on as a side. And for anyone who doesn't know what poutine is, that would be French fries with cheese curds crumbled on top. And then a beef gravy gets kind of poured on top of the cheese curds, melting them onto the fries. But you can get it in all other types, from French fries to mashed potato, baked potato, and of course the odd local distillery makes some pretty good potato vodka as well.
Okay. Besides potatoes, anything else special in the gastronomic scene there?
Yeah, so oysters would be the other one that are really famous in PEI. You have plenty of places in downtown. So the Gahan House, they do oysters either baked or just fresh, as well as Merchantman Oyster House, which is right by the cruise port, maybe a 10-minute walk from the cruise port, really easy to get to. And oysters would be the big one. Depending on they'll generally have a few different varieties for you. as long as you get something from PEI, you're golden.
Okay, very good. For somebody that's traveling with limited mobility, how is it from the cruise port, and what's easy to do there?
So easy to do. The cruise port, you land right in downtown Charlottetown. So anything in the downtown area is easy to access. Like I said, Queen Street is right there. It's the main drag with restaurants, shops. That's where the theaters are, where you can go and see an Anne of Green Gables show or whatever else is playing. You have Province House. That is right there on Queen Street as well, unfortunately covered in scaffolding. St. Dunstan's Basilica is right downtown as well. A beautiful, beautiful church right in downtown Charlottetown, as well as it is relatively easy to hail a cab from the cruise port if you did want to go out on a longer adventure to something like Anne of Green Gables as well, which Anne of Green Gables is all outdoors on a nice flat level ground, pretty easy to get around, and they just built a brand new welcome center there as well. So very easy to access if you did want to go and see that as well.
Okay, so let's say if you did take a cab or something out to Anne of Green Gables, how expensive is that run?
Depending on who you get, that's probably going to run you in and around $50 one way. It is a pretty long drive. You're looking at an hour and a half or so from downtown Charlottetown. So it is a pretty big hike. That's why I would always recommend renting a car. It's almost worth it at that point, because then it gives you a little bit more freedom. You're not tied down to getting a cab or missing a cab. You have the car with you. Really easy to rent a car. Once again, like I said, the cruise pulls up right downtown. You have plenty of rental car options in downtown Charlottetown. I would say book ahead, because in the summertime, especially, and heading into the fall, people will be booking ahead to make sure that they do have vehicles. And then you do have a plethora of tours as well. If you want kind of everything in a package to pick you up right at the cruise port, there are plenty of both bus as well as small group tours that can accommodate a varying range of mobility, depending on who you book with.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes it sound good. So what about Sydney?
So Sydney, it's a new destination for me and a new destination for our company, of course, but it's definitely growing. They actually just built a second cruise port, so they're expecting twice as much traffic this upcoming year. I believe they're expecting over 90 ships this year. So there's kind of Sydney itself, a very, very, very small town, in and around 30,000, same as Charlottetown. But unlike Charlottetown, it's not the province's capital. So in the actual Sydney area, there's not too much. You do have a couple of historic houses and St. Patrick's Church, which is another historic church, as well as right as you get in on the cruise ship, you have the Giant Fiddle. So northern Nova Scotia there is very famous for its Gaelic roots. So you have the Giant Fiddle there. You'll actually see quite a few signs that are written in Gaelic as well as you travel around. But if you are going to Sydney, once again, I highly recommend, especially for this one, take a tour or rent a car. Everything, all the big attractions are kind of within 45 minutes of Sydney itself. So there are kind of, there are three big attractions when you're going to Sydney. Number one, the one I most highly recommend is the Fortress of Louisbourg. So that is in Louisbourg, which is about a 45-minute drive from Sydney. It's not only a fortress, but it's also a town that is built up how it was back when the French controlled the area. The fortress itself is absolutely magnificent, just a beautiful place right on the Atlantic Ocean, amazing views. Throughout the summer, the Parks Canada runs different programs, so they always have something different going on, whether it's, being able to shoot a musket or dressing up in the traditional garb of the time, or doing a little tour through some of the older buildings and whatnot, or getting a little history lesson on what happened at the Fortress of Louisbourg. There are going to be areas at the fortress that are not going to be accessible, just because being built in the time it did, it's only steps in some areas. But like I said, it's not only a fortress, it's a town as well. So a lot of it is open and easy to get around. Your second one is going to be Bedeque. So Bedeque, you're actually starting to go through the highlands of the Cabot Trail on your drive there. So Cape Breton, Sydney is on Cape Breton Island, and Cape Breton is famous for its beautiful drives and its beautiful views along the Atlantic and the Gulf of St. Lawrence there. So you are going to start going through the highlands. Once again, it's about a 45 to 50-minute drive from downtown Sydney. And the reason I would recommend Bedeque is that's where Alexander Graham Bell lived. So you have the Alexander Graham Bell Museum in Bedeque with quite a few of his inventions, as well as a few demonstrations on what he was, some of his inventions that didn't quite work out as well. But no, that once again, Parks Canada does a great job there, giving, depending on how you show up, they always give a little introduction, give you a little explanation of how to get around, what to see. Depending if you come in a tour or not, that explanation is sometimes a little bit longer with a little bit of a demonstration, but you have anything from exhibits to a little presentation to little interactive setups as well while you're in Bedeque. Bedeque itself is a beautiful, beautiful little town with a few restaurants and a resort right on the Bras d'Or Lakes in the central Cape Breton. And like I said, you go through the highlands on the way. So there are a few beautiful stop-off points when you're going over mountains to have looks at the surrounding scenery as well. So another beautiful stop off. And the final one, the one that's a little obscure and not everybody goes to, would be Glace Bay. So there's in Glace Bay, there's a miners museum, as well as that's where the first line telegraph came through from Europe. So that's where they dropped the telegraph line on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean and brought it over to Glace Bay and started actually being able to communicate more instantly from Europe and back as well. So they have a little museum set up there for that as well.
Okay, so now, are any of these combinable, or are they all in opposite directions?
They're all kind of in opposite directions. So Glace Bay is about 45 minutes north. The Fortress of Louisbourg is about 45 minutes east, and Bedeque is about 45 minutes west. Depending on what, most tours will do one with you. You get to choose one. Our tour that we are starting, we are going to combine both the Fortress of Louisbourg and Bedeque in it, so okay. It will be able to do two, and we've kind of geared it around actually the cruise ships to fit it in the times, because most cruise ships kind of show up in Sydney a little bit later on, between 9 and 10. So we're kind of able to fit it in. Most, like I said, do one, but it is possible to do two of them. Three, yeah, you might be pushing your luck there with three, that's for sure.
Okay, so now let me a couple things that come to mind from this. First of all, if you guys are doing the two of them,
yep.
Is there you guys do a lunch stop somewhere along the way?
Yeah. There's a packed lunch that we pick up in Louisbourg, and you can actually eat that along the way to Bedeque, because that is going from Louisbourg to Bedeque. That is going to be about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half. Beautiful scenery on the way, and like I said, you can kind of eat the lunch along the way. But lunch is included. The tour itself would start at 10 and runs to about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's about a 5-hour tour. It includes entrance to both the Fortress as well as the Alexander Graham Bell Museum, and then narrated commentary along the way for the whole thing.
Okay. And since you were talking about going through the highlands there and to going to Bedeque, that makes me think that fall and fall colors time would make that as spectacular.
It's absolutely incredible in the fall time. It's one of the most visited destinations in Canada, especially in September, early September up in northern Nova Scotia. The leaves start changing a little bit earlier than everywhere else. A lot of people are going to be doing the Cabot Trail through the highlands, just enjoying that scenery. And once again, up in Cape Breton area, you are going to have a better chance to see some of the more exciting wildlife Canada has to offer, going along with the likes of moose, black bears, the odd wolf, and then of course some of the more normal stuff like coyotes, foxes, that type of idea as well.
Oh, so that would make it just add some more flavor to it. We get to see some wildlife.
Yeah.
I had a chance to try to look for moose on a train ride in Alaska. I went from Anchorage over to Seward, and people saw a moose, but I wasn't one of those people.
No.
I was looking the wrong way, and he was hurrying to get out of the way or away from the train.
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was. But one last thing on Cape Breton, it is once again, it doesn't have many golf courses, but is very highly ranked for its golf courses. And actually, one of the golf courses this year finished first in the Canadian rankings for the best golf course in Canada, if people are interested in that as well.
Okay, so now that brings me to a question. So we have a couple of stops where golf is a thing.
Yep.
Are the port stops usually long enough that somebody could get in 18 holes, and especially for those that are golfers, maybe they could string two ports together?
Yeah, so especially if you can get a cart while you're there. Most port stops last between 5 and 6 hours. So a golf round usually takes about 4. So that's giving you half an hour to get there, 4 hours to play, half an hour to get back. For the most part, you can squeeze in at least 18. Once again, recommend to get a rental car if you're going to do that, because they are a little bit outside of Sydney. If you do want to do some of the more famous ones, that's where you're going to have to come back and stay multiple days, because those are the ones that are kind of far along the Cabot Trail, where it's taken 5 hours to get there versus a shorter drive.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense. But there are some at least close, and again, if you caught it with a good fall day and some color, that would be a lot of fun.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible. And I guess I'll just touch on this for the PEI one. For golf and PEI, you can't throw a golf ball without hitting a golf course there. So you're going to have more than enough time if you want to golf in PEI. There's a beautiful course that's actually right downtown as well. So that one, no issues. Cape Breton, you might be pushing your time limit a little bit more there.
Okay. Alrighty. So to sum it all up, it sounds like that Sydney and Charlottetown are great places to visit, and that people should plan a cruise to go that direction and enjoy the amazing scenery in the fall.
Yes, 100%. The fall colors are just absolutely incredible out this way. It's it never stops stunning people, never stops stunning me. It's just a beautiful landscape, that's for sure.
Okay, well, so I thank everybody for watching. In the comments below, there is a link to John's company's website, so you can look at the tours that they offer there. There is a link there where you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would appreciate that as well. Appreciate having everybody here. We look forward to seeing you guys next week. And thanks again, John. You've been a great guest. That's twice I owe you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.